Hi, I'm Paul Wells. This is chapter 10 of the story of Plug and Plink. Links to the previous chapters down in the description as usual. This chapter is going to be about the video, the Plug and Plink video. My son studied film at the University of Bristol, and I discussed making a video with him, and he said, yeah, sure, we can definitely work something out. I have access to the university studio and recording facilities. I can probably even find an actor to be the piano teacher. I can find a child actor to be the pupil. So yeah, whatever you want, really, we'll shoot a video. So I said to myself, right, I'll write a script, and then I'll run it past my son, and when he's got his exams out of the way, then we can shoot this video. The plan was to do that about April of this year. So I've shot a couple of videos before, made a couple of corporate type videos before. The usual formula is describe the problem that the product solves, present the product as the solution to the problem that you've just described. So fairly easy, really. I got a few ideas of what I wanted to happen in this video. Whenever I've taught piano to my children, I've always found that if I let, say, my daughter play the right hand and I play the left hand, and then when she's comfortable with that, we swap over and I play the right hand and she plays the left hand, that just seems to work very well as a way of teaching. I think what happens is, by the time she comes to put the two hands together, she's already familiar with what the piece of music should sound like. So I knew I wanted the video to involve that in some way. So I worked on a script. I decided in the middle of it we would introduce the snake. We would use an animation to introduce the snake in the middle of it. Then, of course, we all know what happened. April 2020, full lockdown. I mean, this was not going to happen. There was not going to be any studio or actors or anything like that. So the decision was made. This will then be a full animation. I knew that to make an animation, I would need, first of all, a full soundtrack. So I'd got my script, but I needed a piece of music which the pupil could be learning to play, and given that the target audience is piano teachers, some sort of silly mistake that nobody would ever make wasn't going to cut it. It had got to be a genuine mistake that somebody would quite likely make. But also, the explanation of how to correct that mistake would also need to be a little bit difficult, a bit wordy and not that easy to follow. Then that would show the principle of the product. That yes, putting a light on the keyboard was a much easier way to explain things than just a bunch of words. So I got that together, but I wanted a good tune. I wanted a catchy tune. I didn't want a modern tune that's just a watered down, dumbed down tune. I wanted something a little bit jazzy that would possibly appeal more to the type of person who's a piano teacher. And then, as always happens, one day in the shower, this little tune came to me. Got quite a catchy little lyric to it. Didn't quite rhyme, but actually when you sing it, it sounds like it rhymes. So I was quite pleased with this little tune, and I decided that the piano lesson would be leading up to playing that tune, the jingle. And so you would see the teacher trying to teach the pupil would make the mistake. The teacher would correct the snake using Plug and Plink, and then they would do this duet idea together, one doing right hand, one doing left hand. So that was it. Easy. So I thought. Next step, get some voice talent, get some actors. So I'm going to need a teacher, I'm going to need a pupil, but I also want the snake to speak, to say this is who I am and this is what I do. And I also needed a fourth voice actor to actually sing the jingle at the end. So I had 4 people to audition, 4 roles to audition for. First of all, I found a teacher. I found a very friendly sounding teacher. He's got a very friendly voice. He needed a hint of frustration in his voice as he was trying to explain what was the problem with the playing, what error the pupil had made. But I wanted him to also sound friendly as well when she got it right. So I found a guy on Fiverr who could do that for me. So that was good. Then I needed a pupil. So I needed a sort of 10-year-old girl sounding voice actor. I couldn't find anybody in the UK. So the girl whose voice it is, she's in the USA, and it wasn't what I'd planned, but in fact I thought that's kind of fine actually. It's good there's a bit of a mixture of accents in there. The voice of the snake, that was a lady from London. She has a very pure accent. I liked her voice. And finally, the singing. So I needed the teacher's singing to kind of match the teacher's spoken voice so that it wouldn't sound too different. And there was a guy from Ireland, and I liked his singing voice, but when I got the first few versions back, my goodness me, it was so loud. His voice was massively powerful, and it took about 5 times of saying, please sing it quieter, sing it as quietly as you can, and eventually he did a good take, and that's how the soundtrack got completed. So I just edited the soundtrack myself. I added a little ethereal sounding piano bit as well as the snake arrives. I did the echo on the teacher's voice and stuff like that. So I got all of the effects that I wanted. It didn't take me too long to get the soundtrack done. Then I had to find an animator. Well, my goodness me. I get bombarded with companies offering to make explainer videos. And these are the typical sort of very bouncy animated characters that it's all full of bounce and life. And I think they're actually quite good for explaining how your new company's system of treating sewage works or something like that. Yes, you can explain it very, very quickly, but it's not a spot on thing. It's not an exact thing. It's all a bit, here's the general message and you get the general idea. I didn't want a general idea. I wanted a truly authentic sounding, looking animation. I wanted to get it as professional as I possibly could. And the benchmark for this, I have always thought, was, well, in the early 1990s, the BBC shot a dramatisation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And what's significant about it, what I always admired about this production, was there's a scene where there's a dance and there's a meeting of families in a large stately home. And it would have been very easy to just do the usual thing. Here's some actors, we'll sort the sound out later. Yeah, dress a few people up in clothes and show them playing musical instruments, but it's not really part of the story. You know, it's not that significant. But they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to write original music, but we're going to use musicologists to actually study what would be the typical type of music for a dance, for an occasion like this. What degree of harmony do they use? And we will also research what musical instrument technology there was at the time. So we're not just going to use modern instruments to play. We're going to actually get craftsmen to make the musical instruments of the time. And then we're going to get real musicians to learn to play this custom piece of music and play these instruments. And then when we take the scene, we're going to put the musicians and the instruments and the actors all into one room, and we're going to do it all in one take. And you will hear on the soundtrack the floor creaking as people dance, and you will hear the inaccuracies in the tuning in the instruments, and they're only average type, or supposed to be only average type players, so the timing won't be perfect, and the acting and the voice, the lines, it'll all be captured, it'll all be real, there'll be nothing about it that's fake. And this thing made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. It's so real, it's so fantastic, and it's actually so rare that anybody goes to that much trouble to make a film that authentic. I'm not saying I got that close, but I didn't want some animation with, oh yeah, this kid's playing the piano, so hands are just sort of wibbling around on the piano, but not in time or anything. No, I wanted it absolutely spot on. The audience are piano teachers. They're going to be nauseated if they find that this bit isn't authentic. So in finding an animator, I had to say up front, you are going to have to be very good at modelling hands. They're going to have to fit on a real piano. The keys on the piano is going to have to actually move, and it's got to be in time with the soundtrack perfectly. Well, I auditioned 3 different animators. I paid them 20 quid each. Said, can you make a few seconds of this? Let's see what comes out. The idea being that I'll just pick the best of the 3. And what I got back was bad, but it's not bad because they were bad animators, because I'd already thrown out all the animators that had very plastic looking character models and things like that. These were good animators, but I realised I'd failed to explain sufficiently well what I wanted in enough detail of what this animation should look like. So then I realised I need to get a storyboardist. So I paid a professional storyboarder to produce, and it's quite a work of art to see this thing. Very, very nice hand drawings saying at this point in time the camera does this, and we see this and we notice that. So there's quite a bit of moving between mobile phones and different scenes and everything that's happening. And that took a couple of weeks to actually nail it all down and say, yes, I believe this storyboard now has all of the details. And then a bit of luck came in, and I managed to get hold of a very, very good animator who's worked on some really quite fantastic films that have had tens of millions of hits on YouTube. And this guy said, yes, I'm available, and we agreed a price. And over the course of the next 2 weeks, it was tremendous fun. I absolutely loved it. Working with this guy, every 2 days or so, there'd be a new version of the thing, and there'd just be that bit more detail. So in the early days, there were just sort of sticks, and it was just a matter of checking the positions and the timing and do the shots look roughly correct. But then after quite a while, the detail came in. Where are the eyes looking in the right place? Is the hair got added, and all of the tiny details that add the authenticity to it, they all got added later. One thing I did, because it was good fun even thinking, how can we make this, what should the pupil's bedroom look like? What should the teacher's house look like as well? Because obviously the more different they look, then the more obvious it is that the scene is changing between the pupil and the teacher. And I thought, well, what will a teacher have? Might have a metronome, probably some certificates on the wall, and quite cheekily, the certificate on the wall is in fact my grade 8 certificate, which is barely readable, but for no other reason than it was the only certificate I could get my hands on easily, and scan it and put it in there. So that got added. There were some After Effects to do as well. So the lights on the snake's back, obviously they're not part of the actual model, the 3D model. The other thing I'd say about the 3D model as well, the snake looks absolutely perfect, and there's a very simple reason for that. It is the same CAD model that the product designer had made that went into the creation of the injection molding tools. That same digital model was converted and then added to the scene, and that's a really nice trick, I think. I don't know whether other people do that, but I've never heard of it before. But yes, I was very, very pleased to find out that could be done. So it's been really, really good fun actually making a video. I'm very, very pleased with the results. That's probably enough for this chapter. I don't know how long I've been talking. Next week, I think what I'm going to do is, because I've kept everybody in suspense long enough, what I'll do is actually I'll shoot the next video in my home. We'll have the snake out, we'll have a look at the app, and we'll actually start demoing it, and I'll show you what all of this has all been about. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week.